What's going on, family? How y'all doing on today's episode of TSC Unleased? What's going? Good to see some of the family members chiming in the live stream today. Big ups to you. Good to see GM Kev, Brother Jerry, Jasper, and the rest of the family members chiming in this edition of TSC Unleashed. I'm your host, Big Q, chiming with you. And on this episode, as always, our key contributor and co-host, Mozzi. Uncle Mozzi is in the building. How you doing, Uncle Mozzi?
I'm A-OK. How you doing?
Doing good, brother. Covering the latest stuff, man, and we're gonna kick it off, man. Some of these games are really positive to see some of this stuff. As it stands right now, the Rockets are underway and the Thunder looking to kind of extend the series 3-2 early on. But we're gonna start it off. Luka Doncic had a game-winning shot as well. We're gonna cover that. I know you want to talk about that. But we're gonna get the ball rolling with some NBA playoffs. Of course, we're gonna talk a little NFL on the back end with Earl Thomas and destinations for him, and of course a little boxing talk in between that. But without further ado, in this 40-minute plus show, we're gonna jump into the NBA playoffs. Gonna start with the Boston Celtics in this one. The Celtics came in this one, took care of business, and over the weekend just pushed this team, the Sixers, put them out of their misery. The Sixers, however, did play better, man. They did play a lot better, in this matchup, an attempt to stave off the sweepation. But 30 points for Joel Embiid in the matchup in 37 minutes. He was balling 30 points and 10 rebounds. And then, of course, 20 from Tobias Harris. That was a much-needed 20 performance. They needed Tobias Harris to step up. He gave him 20. Unfortunately, Richardson was another guy that threw in 14 along with Shake Milton. It just wasn't enough. Al Horford, 12 points, 10 rebounds. They got close, but close is not good enough in this matchup as the Celtics were able to push them on out of there by the hands of Kemba Walker's 32-point game, 28 from Jason Tatum, 16 from Jay Brown. They get it done 110-106. Mozzi, Philly is no more in the playoffs. They eliminated, bro.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that yesterday my dustpan was a little heavy. Took two of us to pick it up, and he picked up a few pounds, so we couldn't just pick it right up. And that dustpan was also occupied with one other team that was swept out of there and taking out the New Jersey Nets with the rest of the trash. Listen, man, I understand what you're talking about. They put up a good game. It was, all that sounds great.
They played well. They tried, bro. But they didn't have enough.
Listen, right, but that only this isn't horseshoes. This is the NBA, not the National Horseshoe Association. So it is what it is, man. I mean, you think about it. If I would have beat up somebody in the first grade right now, eventually, towards the back end of the fight, I get tired of punching on them because they're just a bloody poke lane right there, and that's kind of what happened yesterday. As far as this better play that you speak of, and they put up a fight, it reminded me about it was as if somebody brought an umbrella to a tsunami. It'll never work. It'll offer you almost no protection. You can't give them points just because they were smart enough to bring an umbrella because they brought it to a tsunami. This wasn't by any means a surprise to me. I already told you I love Boston as a dark horse coming out the East. They made quick work of the Nets. Now it's on to the next one, and I think we'll go into the next round. We'll take it in 5 or 6 easily because we didn't really exert any energy. So with that confidence boost going into, because Philly was touted to be in the conversation at the beginning of this season, moving forward and going into the bubble. Philly wasn't looked at maybe as a Toronto or could have been looked at on the same level as Toronto. I think maybe Toronto and Milwaukee were the only two teams in the East that may have been, started out above them in the standings as we went into the NBA season. So this is absolutely a disappointment for Philadelphia. All of Philadelphia. I got a call from one of the guys over there that played for the Eagles. He was even pissed off about it. So Meek Mill was mad about the shit. Everybody was mad about it. So it's not one of those things that surprised me. I already knew that Boston would come in, take care of business. Now it's on to the next one.
Yeah, that's pretty much it is. And now they're going to face to see exactly what happens with Brett Brown. But a lot of people, it's not good to be a Philly fan to watch what goes on there because they're gonna be screaming for bloody murder on top of that. So Brett Brown, I'm thinking his job is gonna be it's just going to be taken from you. You can't get swept, man. Despite the 40 wins, you can't get swept. We'll see exactly where it goes. All right, let's move on to the next matchup. One of the more critical matchups of this past weekend was the Dallas Mavericks matchup against the Clippers. And I've said that this is a 7-game series. I don't know if I think Mozzi didn't agree with me. I don't think he thought it would go 7. But Luka Doncic steps up and makes a big shot toward the end of the back end of the game to hopefully lift the Mavericks up. I told you this kid's for real, man. And this was going to be a series. Dallas is a very difficult team. The NBA loves what Luka brings. He has that international appeal. And in this one, he finished with 43 points, 13 assists, 17 rebounds. This kid is special. In 46 minutes of action, 18 of 31 from the field, 4 of 10 from downtown, 3 of 5 from the field, 43 points, 21 from Hardaway Jr., 25 from Trey Burke, who came in and played heavy minutes, 37 minutes in the matchup. He finished with 25, much needed 25, 15 off the bench from Seth Curry, not Steph, 10 from Marjanovic to also help out as this team pushed past them. A very tough team led by 32 points by Leonard, but Paul George, he struggled. Had Paul George stepped this game up, they would have won this game. He played 45 minutes. He was 3 of 14 from the field, 1 of 7 from downtown. Paul George finished with 9 points and 8 rebounds in the match. Too bad. Series is tied up 5. What you think? 5, he's still with me.
Well, again, as much like we had already discussed, this one would definitely go down to the wire, 7 games. We knew that LA had come into the bubble struggling. They struggled really all year. They hadn't had a chance to really play together as a cohesive unit. And this isn't the Miami Heat of 2010, 2011 when they went in and lost Dallas. You're in the West, my man. You don't really have time to gel. You got to already come there ready to play. And that's something I think LA, the Clippers, the great value LA team, I think that's something they weren't poised to do. I think they thought it was going to be a cakewalk. They looked real good on paper. They had some real brand names. Everything was Kellogg's, Heinz. Into the season and going into the bubble. Even the great value players can be starters in a lot of grocery stores. So, it's one of those things. It's unfortunate that they didn't get it together. And if Dallas wins tonight, I simply don't see a scenario where the Clippers could come and beat them 2 out of 3. I don't two back to back rather. I don't see it happening. So I mean, and really and truly, I don't really see it either way. But if a team did have to come back and win 2 straight games, I definitely think that would be Dallas. I don't see the Clippers being able to play from behind and having to be winners of 2 straight games against a team that has dominated this series, even with the loss of the first game, obviously predicated by a really bad technical foul call that got Dallas' player tossed. And once that happened, it was over with. I mean, the Clippers were able to assert their will, something they hadn't been able to do for 2.5 quarters. So undoubtedly, had that call not taken place, I think we'd be looking at we'd be on the verge of a 4-1 victory.
Yeah, I mean, I just like how the series looks, man. It's really competitive. And I figured Dallas, man, although I don't know if Dallas will be able to beat the Clippers, I'm saying merely that they will push them to 7 games, as you can see. And Luka Doncic is the real deal, man. Kristaps Porzingis and those guys. Hardaway is that X factor. He can score, big guard that can do a lot. And then they have guys off the bench that can carry the day. They often talked about the Houston Rockets bench, but the Dallas Mavericks have guys like Trey Burke and Seth Curry. If those guys get hot, they can they can really help the starting lineup up in the team overall off the bench. All right, let's move into the next matchup. 2 even on the series, man. I'm loving this series. Let's go to the Raptors and Nets here, 5. Raptors and Nets, my friend. You take a look at this matchup. The Raptors were able to finally get this team out. He talked about the heavy dustpan. They did it 150-122. They put them out of their misery. Norman Powell was a guy. He finished with 29 points in the matchup. But like I said, man, nobody expected much out of the Brooklyn Nets here. 29 from Powell, 27 from Sergio Ibaka in the matchup. Siakam had 20 and 10 assists, 6 rebounds in the matchup at 33 minutes. Van Vliet kind of cooled off a bit, 9 points, 5 assists in 19 minutes of action. He kind of set down because they had this one pretty much done early with Toronto. Sweeps out Brooklyn, headed to the next round. Mozzie, any entertaining thoughts on this one?
Hey, man, like we already knew what it was. One thing I will say, right? And I didn't see this coming from Toronto, but Toronto, they won this series with ferocity. They didn't play with these people at all.
Nope.
Although the Nets did try to show some kinds of life here and there. Last night was the exclamation point game to show you how little they gave a you know what about any opponent they face. It doesn't matter if they were a weak trash opponent like the Nets or if they're the best in that whole conference as it would be with Milwaukee. Toronto is serious and they hit a play and they're not playing up to the level of their competition. So hang 150 on somebody, especially somebody that's backed into a corner. I mean, you know, you serious about a mission that you're on. I don't know if it's because people have been doubting them since Kawhi left. I don't know if it's because they're a Canadian team and everybody else is from the States and they look at them kind of weird. I don't really know what it is. I don't know if it was because Drake's about to drop a new album. I don't really know what it is. What I do know is to hang 150 points on someone in a closeout game where most coaches and most players would kind of want to take it easy or just be kind of doing, you know, all kind of weird stuff like it's an all-star game. That team didn't do that yesterday. They had 150 points on a real live NBA team, and an NBA team was good enough to make it to the playoffs. I think we're forgetting about that. It's not like this was the Hornets. They're the Hornets. Now, it's not like they were the Hornets or maybe Golden State in their weak, dilapidated state. This team actually came to play. New Jersey, you know, actually came into this series with some kind of confidence because they had made it to the playoffs without their 2-star, unbelievable first-round ballot guys. They still made it to the playoffs without having won the entire season. So they had a lot to build off going into this, and like Toronto just deflated the air out the balloon quickly. They didn't play with them, and I love it.
Yeah, that was interesting, man. They did take them apart. They didn't give them any opportunity to gather anything and make a move to get back in this one. And like I said, Toronto defending champs, man, coming with it in this matchup. Before we go on with the rest of the talk, let me get to brother Jerry Poirier's question. He's asking about I just noticed it. He said, New Orleans Saints, why did the Saints let Bradham go? Well, let me address that right quick. We're going to talk more about that on our 605 show, but just to answer brother Jerry out of respect and the rest of the family members that are curious about that move, based on the information that I got, and we'll play some interviews that'll fortify that, is the fact that the Saints feel like they have that Bradham wasn't going to get very much minutes based on the ideology that they were going to play more of Zach Bowen in the mixture, Alex Anzalone and Zach Bowen, and a few of these other young guys in the fold. So it's too bad because I myself felt that Nigel Bradham should have stuck around in this matchup. But then again, remember I talked to y'all about this. I said Bradham is a good guy to have. The Saints have a 4-3 base defense they play out of, but the majority of the time they play in the modified nickel, which is 2 linebackers, 2 of the fastest linebackers, which is going to be Alex Anzalone or Demario Davis and Alex Anzalone, not or, but and. And then behind those guys who will bring depth, would it be Nigel Bradham or would it be a guy like Zach Bowen? Well, there you go. But when they brought Bradham on, we thinking like, okay, from a standpoint of you keep Bradham on the team for an insurance policy, but Bradham is not he's not a backup linebacker. Bradham's coming in to start. And he can occupy the weak side or the small side linebacker position for you, but obviously they're having a change here. Now, I think Bradham is an experienced guy that brings a lot to the team, but people are forgetting the fact that the Saints, they're not really, it appears, they're not interested in that. They're going to try to come with these young guys, and that's really disconcerting to me because if you're pushing for a Super Bowl, If you want to get to the Super Bowl, you're going to need some experienced guys there. And of course, you know, Drew Brees in his last year, you need experienced guys to take you over the hump. And that's something that they're peeling back from. As you see, they're going with pushing more of these young guys to the move. And I think that's absolutely foolish. Bradham should still be on this team. And I also think one of the younger cornerbacks or maybe one of these guys like a PJ Williams or Johnson Batamosi, while we messing around with Johnson Batamosi, we should get one of these veteran cornerbacks in here to fortify the secondary and another edge rusher to come in, where it's Clay Matthews or whatever. You need experienced guys that's been there as opposed to leaning on the youth. They still haven't learned their lesson of the past. When you lean on these rookie guys, they tend to let you down. I.e. Marcus Williams 3 years ago in the Minnesota Miracle, i.e. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, what happened with him against Kittles when he took a poor angle and Kittles just sprinted up the field, and Marcus Williams grabbed his face mask for 10 yards, throwing the 15-yard penalty, putting their kicker in prime position to kick you out of here in the Niners into a win. So rookies represent. That's what Bill Parcells always says, and he's the mentor of Sean Payton. Him and other older coaches said rookies in playoffs represent losses. That's what he said, because they haven't been there before. They don't know what to expect, and you need veterans there. So that's what I'll say on that, family. I'm gonna leave that alone. Okay, hold on. Brian Pearson, good to see, says, do you think the Sixers design players back and get some free agents and get a great coach next year? I think you heard what Embiid was saying. Mozzie, I want to bring you in on the Philly question from Brian Pearson. I hope I answered that question. Who that to the rest of the family members joining the TSC Unleashed as well. That's right. JT said things.
You gotta make the sound with unleashed. You gotta make that
unleashed, like a beast or something. I got you. We got to find that effect, Mozzie.
Yeah, right.
But Brian Pearson's asking
the question. Go on to Brian's question, man. Touching on Jerry's question beforehand, the Saints are not going to do that. The Saints always have been the team that's going to sign the greatest value player that they could ever find.
There you go with this great value player.
I'm just being honest, man. They're going to get the greatest value player they can find. They're not going to sign any names. They're going to try to either get it out of free agency or draft it in like the 29th round and pull off this miracle. You know how they get down. It's I think it's a project or ego thing for Sean Payton. So going back out to Brian's question, when we look at it, the 76ers, I don't know if the 76ers will be able to keep Embiid there. I'm gonna just be honest with you. I think this may muddy up the water for them, and I think that he may scream bloody murder and try to get out of there, especially if they don't get any kind of help going forward. I think it'll be another bad rendition of the Anthony Davis show, and I think he'll check out of there sooner rather than later. Again, I thought that they had their best shot last season, and they weren't able to close it out. Now you come back in this season, you get rid of Butler, you got a guy who could dribble, penetrate, and can't shoot. You got another guy, two other bigs that kind of play above the rim, and they got to stay within that 8 to 10 foot range. So you got three guys that all have to play in the same position. And in the 2020 NBA where guys are shooting it from 40 feet out. So, and you can't really keep up with that. Even your bigs, because of the way they're shooting, they can't get the long rebounds. And then you got all of these bigs that are able to shoot. And you got these forces that running up and down the court, letting it fly. So it's pretty, I don't know. This is a bad situation in Philly right now. And it's not like they're a program that wouldn't spend the money. It's not like they're not in a great fan supportive state. I don't know, but this has been a continuous problem since Allen Iverson got drafted. That was like the last really big draft pick that they kind of built the team around to kind of support what he had going on. And I mean, we haven't seen that since 2000, 2001 with the infamous stepping over the face of Tyronn. So I mean, I don't know, man. I'd love to see Philly do something. They're an old world powerhouse team, but I mean, the new world is just not working for them too well.
Yeah, it's a mess, man. And the way I see it is, if you look at what the Sixers doing, they're definitely gonna look at a coach. But that's a lot of people going to push for that. But the good news about the Philadelphia situation is that there are a lot of really good coaches out there. So you could take a look at this. Is very, there's Fizdale, there's Yeager. There's a bunch of really good coaches out there.
Of course, Mike Brown.
And guys like that. So I mean, you have some options for the team. So we'll see exactly what the Sixers tend to do. But you have Joel Embiid and other questions. Tobias Harris, Al Horford. We thought this combination of players, along with Ben Simmons, would actually work. They did win 40-plus games, and then ultimately he got hurt. But that begs the question: is like, you might want to find somebody off the bench that can steady the ship if Simmons has issues like that, so you don't suffer a complete collapse. They were not supposed to get swept. They had enough talent. When Simmons not there, of course you kind of gauge you're not going to be able to beat the Boston Celtics without Simmons. We understand that. But the issue is not getting swept. You wasn't supposed to get swept against Boston. As good as they are,
Yeah, but
they had enough. Come on, Five. They had enough where they should
have
stole the game out of there some kind of way.
Let me ask you a question. You can look at one of these religious groups like Al Qaeda or one of these other extremist groups, right? They can have all the guns and weapons and missile launchers and everything that they want, right? But if they're fighting on the ground, all you got to do is send a few drones in there with some missiles and blow all of that up. Ain't nothing they can do about it. It's the same thing. You got all of these bigs, all of these people that could beat the ball up, beat all the letters off the ball, dribbling it so much, go to the cup, dunk, beat on their chest. I mean, these are some serious guys you wouldn't want to meet in the dark back alley, right? But it does no good when you're in a fighter jet and you're dropping threes down from heaven and there's nothing you could do about it. I mean, you're being barbaric, but you don't come to paint. When your business and barbarism counts, then you're going to lose automatically. It doesn't matter. There's no way the Persian Empire could defeat the United States government. As big and prolific as it might have been, you could bring as many spears and arrows you want to a missile fight. It's just not going to work. But they were big and prolific, barbaric, animalistic, whatever adjective you want to throw on top to describe Philadelphia and their hard-nosed, blue-collar way to play basketball. This does not work in 2020, period.
And to your historic analogy, it didn't, because Philly gets marched out. Boston is moving on to the next round. All right, let's keep it going here. We're going to come back to you, Brian. I know you got another question. We're going to ask you a question, family. We're going to just get through a few more topics, and we're going to come back to you. Utah took on Denver, 129-127. Really excellent shootout, man. These two young guards are Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell, man. They're spectacular. Mitchell, 51 points in the game, 51 in 38 minutes. He was 15 of 27, 7 assists, 4 rebounds. This kid was special. Just awesome. 51 points in the matchup. 24 off the bench from Jordan Clarkson. He's been a find for him, I tell you what. 26 from Mike Conley, who showed up in the matchup as well. 8 of 13 from the field, 4 of 8 from downtown. He finished with 26 points, 4 assists, 17 from Big Gobert, 17 and 11 in 39 minutes. He played well enough to get the win. On the loser side of it, you look at what Denver done. Jamal Murray, 50 points, man. 50 points in 43 minutes. He was 18 of 31 from the field, 9 of 15 from downtown. He finished with 50 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists in the matchup. That's pretty special. Nikola Jokic, 29 points, 7 rebounds in 39 minutes. He was playing really well as well. Millsap in the game, 16.7 rebounds in 35 minutes of action. But outside of those guys, and of course you could throw Grant in there, he had 12 points and 4 rebounds, but nobody else in double figures. Michael Porter Jr., had he stepped up and played a little bit better, 9 points and 4 rebounds in 23 minutes. Craig off the bench with 19. They go down. They lose by 2. Utah takes control of this series 3-1. This is a crucial series, really exciting game. Utah takes control of this series. 5, you had Denver picked as a team that would represent in the Western Conference Final. Am I correct?
I did.
And
yes.
Please explain why they're trailing 3-1 now.
Listen, man, this is really just a bad matchup issue. The Denver Nuggets were designed to be a half-court team, a really big half-court team, big, long, kind of move the basketball around, traditional old school Jerry Sloan type basketball team to go against the Clippers and Lakers, period. This isn't what this Utah team is. And the issue that we're having is the fact that Donovan's playing he's playing out of his mind in 2 games anyway. I could see He was the best player on the floor. His shooting was lights out, and their average margin of victory, either team, has really been like 8 points or less. So it's just the smallest of the small things that have to be corrected on either side for them to either win or for them to lose. Free throws are a really big part of it. I don't think Denver's getting to the line as much as they need to, and the biggest reason of that is, um, I mean, Utah just doesn't have anybody in the interior that's gonna just willing to just stop them. They almost like, okay, well, we'll let you get these two, and then we'll go down and make it rain threes. You can only swap that for so long before it swallows you up. You understand what I'm saying? So it's just a real bad matchup issue. They can overcome this. Maybe they need to, bring LeBron over so he can kick somebody in the and get him suspended for a game like he did when he was over in Cleveland, and they can come back down from 3-1. They're not out of it. They can make a few adjustments and come back. It's not going easy road, but you got to take one game at a time. You got to do they've got to do what they do. They've got to play a traditional style of basketball that brings them into a half court set where they get control and dictate the pace of the game. They get to find their looks. They get to slow the game down where they can get set play defense and they can physically assault these people. I think another really bad matchup issue is the fact that Rudy Gobert is a legit 7'1" guy. You see,
Yes,
so that's
he
going to
give
create
Jokic some
problems
underneath that basket.
Yes, and considering that's your number one offensive and defensive weapon, it doesn't take much. He doesn't have to stop him. All he has to do is contain him. Instead of him dropping 25, okay, I'm gonna make it tonight where you're not gonna drop over 16. Might not sound like a lot, and the guy still puts up 16 points, 10 boards, still a solid game. But those extra 5 or 6 points, considering the margin of victory by either team has been like 8 or less, they kind of count, if that makes sense to you. Worst case scenario, if he can't make the bucket, he can still get to the stripe. And Gobert has been denying him all of that. And what happens again, just like on the opposite end, when you rely on guard play, when you rely on big play, again, just like what happened with Philly, once they start shooting, the big is eliminated because he can't defend at the rim. He can't get long rebounds because they're being shot from 40 feet away. All he can do is sit there and watch as his team dismantles and crumbles and falls apart.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. And Utah, they've taken the series lead now. So, I mean, that is really important as Denver is going to have to find a way. Coach Malone, who's head coach of the Denver Nuggets, challenged his team to play with more heart. They did play with more heart this game. Just couldn't get certain opportunities toward the late in the game to go right for him. Murray put on a fantastic affair. Utah just claimed the victory, and now they're up 3-1. We'll see what Denver's made of if they can come back. Okay, other prior games to talk about this past weekend, we're going to do in a brief view vantage point. Of course, the Bucks were able to get a win over the Magic 121-107 as they take claim of the series 2-1. The Pacers fell again to the Miami Heat 124-115. The Heat are now up 3-0 on the Indiana Pacers right now. The Pacers looking at elimination. And then, of course, the Rockets matchup, who the Rockets are playing right now. They lost to the Thunder. The Lakers 116-108 over Portland, took command of the series at 2-1. And now looking to kind of move ahead into this upcoming week and kind of distance himself from a team. A lot of people thought Portland could play a lot better. That fourth game will be tonight. I mean, number 4 game will be tonight in the center time. Right now, the Bucks also played the Magic. They beat the Magic, and they took a 3-1 lead over Orlando, 121-106. Right now, currently, the Rockets are up 40-36 on the Thunder, trying to move ahead and take that lead. Something tell me the Thunder trying to even that series off right there. And of course, the Pacers and the Heat are tonight as the Pacers trying to scave off that Heat team, looking to push them out of the finals. Uncle Mozzi, which game would you like to talk about? The Lakers and the Portland Trail Blazers? I'll leave it up to you.
We can talk about the Lakers and the Trailblazers. I called for 4 sweeps. I called for 5 sweeps actually when this first started. I called it the 5 sweepstakes, right? We had Orlando that was supposed to get swept. We had definitely who got swept anyway was New Jersey and so far anyway it was New Jersey and Oklahoma City evaded the sweep by one game, but I think they'll definitely be going down here by Wednesday. Um, and I mean that's where we stood. So I thought Portland would play a lot better. They didn't. Unfortunately, it looks like they're gonna go down if they can't like swing things back. But if they can tie it up today, that'll breathe life into them. I don't know how much life. It'll breathe enough life or some life into them where they could try to like rebound and repoise themselves and come back. But again, if Dame does not score that 35 or better, it's really gonna be tough for them to win. He's gonna have to have one of those, out of sight 40, 50-point games for them to have a shot to win by like 3 or 4, and hopefully they can get a quick breather and go up and win that back-to-back 2 games. They win 2 back-to-back. I don't see LA being able to beat them back-to-back when they're riding an emotional high. But that's how this team is built. That's how this team plays. That's how Dame plays. He's got to have some kind of an emotional spark behind him. He almost reminds me like a saying or something. But like, unless you like make him mad or whatever, like he's not gonna play. I don't really know what that's all about. But again, that's why, like when Brother Cab was roasting me a couple of weeks ago when I said that Dame just really wasn't a superstar. Here we go again. This is the difference between a star and a superstar. He's a star, but I think we pumped the brakes on superstar because I swear like a week and a half ago, y'all were all ready to hang me and crown this guy and talk about he the best player ever. I don't know y'all remember that.
Nobody was saying
it's
he's
cool.
the best player was ever.
It's cool.
I don't think
I called this 2 weeks ago. And lo and behold, here we go. Here we are. That whole ship is about to sink. I already knew it though. I don't think you and Brother Cab knew it was gonna sink as fast as it did, but hey, here it is. SS Titanic. It's going down.
I still say tonight is a major thing where they have to play. We'll see what they're made of right now. With McCullough and the rest of those guys, Lillard, they have to step up. And even this series,
they won't.
And we'll see. I'll be paying attention to it. That's for certain.
As much as I want LeBron to lose, because I hate LeBron, but as much as I want him to lose, I just don't see it. I'm listening.
Okay, before we leave out, that's our last basketball topic. We're going to answer Brian Pearson's question. I appreciate the question, Brian. He says, who do you think is going to be the semifinals this year and make the NBA championship? And the team you pick with assign back older players next year. Okay, did you get that question from Brian Pearson at 5?
And the team you pick will sign back older players next year. I mean, as far as them signing players back, I don't really know. I already made my predictions for. I picked Toronto and the Bucks to come out the East, with the exception of Boston. It wouldn't shock me. I also picked LA and Denver, which that's looking real bad right now due to that matchup issue in Utah. But I don't know. I mean, as far as re-signing players, that's a slippery slope, especially with COVID and salary cap shrinking, penalties rising. I don't know. We haven't even really been paying attention to the draft and then what the potentials are with the draft going forward. I mean, everything is just kind of up in the air right now. So we don't know it's about, signing. I'm sure everybody would like to re-sign the players and bring back their teams and build upon them, but we just don't know what that cap's gonna look like, what those penalties are gonna look like, because everything is gonna be, is gonna shrink down, especially not knowing what the fan service is gonna be for next year, not knowing how many games we'd have to play with either half-filled stadiums or less before we get back to full capacity, which goes into concessions, which goes into parking, all of those dynamics that are needed to pay these $100 million contracts that a lot of these players want, especially in basketball, because it's all guaranteed and anybody can get it. I really was about to go buy me a jersey and go sign up for walk on to somebody and give me $30 million. I mean, they're giving the money away. So I don't know, man. We just gotta kind of play it by ear and see what's gonna take place and go from there. If I'm not mistaken, I gotta check on it, but we should be due for a new CBA soon, huh?
In the NFL? Oh, you talking about the NBA? Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it's on the horizon, man. It's coming up real soon with some of the stuff that's
It was
going
like
on.
a year or two.
I don't know how long it is. I know they were being in discussion about small incremental things dealing with the CBA, but to know exactly when it is, I'm gonna have to look into that. But I can get you that information.
Yeah, well,
On the
either
back
way,
end.
that COVID and all that's going to have to be factored into whatever the new dynamic is going forward, and those are going to be like financial restrictions and responsibilities that these teams are going to have to adhere to, which I think will be pretty good because that means some of these super teams we got to bust some of it up and spread the talent around because there'll just be less money as per the cap to go around.
Well, to answer your question about the NFL, I mean the NBA's CBA, they extended the termination date and all the way through the 2023 to 2024 season with a mutual opt-in available for the 2022-2023 season because of what's going on with the COVID-19, just to let you know.
Okay, yeah, see, I knew it was right around the corner somewhere, and I didn't know how COVID would affect it. So basically, they just put everything on the back burner
They put it
and
on hold.
kick the can down a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, kick the can down a little bit to try to see if the owners can't recoup some of the money that they lost this year. The owners and the sponsorship, actually. And I mean, before everybody gets to saying anything about it, without those owners and those big brands that we all can't stand, we cannot have an NBA or an NFL or an MLB or an MLS or whatever because that's how the bills are paid. That's how these $100 million contracts are paid. So, I mean, I'm all for that, but I just don't know how they're going to go forward with trying to recoup some of their money and still have to pay these gigantic, enormous contracts. So that remains to be seen, and we'll have to take a bigger look at that, around October, November, when all of the foolishness and the bubble wraps up.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the business of the NBA and the CBA situation, that's up in the air. I mean, right now, it's just too much uncertainty. The league's fighting for viability right now, and to have that in discussion will only complicate matters. So they're going to push it
It's the
further
only
down
one
the
that's
line.
done it seamlessly.
Yeah.
This the only organization that has done it seamlessly.
And it appears
MLB
it's still
tried.
not done now. It's still
It's
not
not
done.
done.
But
It's
they have
not
done
done.
it better
But
than the
I mean,
rest. We're gonna keep it real.
he's done it better than the rest, and we will after this first round, we'll be at the halfway mark.
Right.
So, I mean, all things considered, I think they've done a really good job. I know it's cost them a lot of money, and maybe because they're a much smaller organization as far as moving parts, that's why they've been able to do so well. But I mean, traditionally the NBA has always been the one to roll out new policies, new procedures, new thought patterns. The NFL just always steals theirs. I mean, i.e. XFL, i.e. NFL Europe. I mean, you can go back as far as whenever they steal the ideas everybody else kind of propagates and brings out. But the NBA has always innovated everything. And this is just one of those things that they're innovating again on how to survive in a bubble. And I think they've done a remarkable job. And again, I can't even tell that I'm watching a staged game with staged fans and piped in music and noise. I'm to the fan service as far as the viewership. I'm sold. We can play it like this all the time. It would never bother me.
Yeah, they've done a fantastic job putting on the effort. That lets you know the NBA's been really practicing over a long term. And if you go to an actual NBA game, you can understand that they create the game as more as a side attraction as opposed to the main event. Mm-hmm. They have so much stuff going around with when you go to the NBA events prior to this stuff coming out, that they had contests for the fans, all kind of stuff, and the game was merely like a side attraction. So they had so much entertainment, lights and everything, the contests and the t-shirt giveaways and all this other kind of stuff. It was a fun environment. So the NBA entertainment aspect has really stepped up. And as you can see, it's nothing more than a stage that they're performing with piped in music and virtual fans that you can't actually hear, but you think that you can hear because of the simulated noise. They even know when to raise it up to degree and break it down, all that kind of stuff. Even give you the feel of your arena by taking some of the sponsors that sponsor the companies that sponsored your team and putting their logos on the court to give some familiarity. So they've done a pretty decent job, more than decent job of doing that. It'd be hard pressed for anybody to kind of duplicate what the NBA has done because the rest of these venues are so much larger than what they're producing. So anyway, let's move on to the next topic, which is football. We're going to talk about the story here about Earl Thomas. Did you hear the one about Earl Thomas punching his teammate? The team said, you know what, we're going to have to get rid of you. So they released Earl Thomas before trying to trade Earl Thomas. And now he's a free agent. Now, Fab, I know you've been keeping up with Earl Thomas. We know Earl has made countless statements about where he wants to play. What's your thought process on where he ends up going to?
That's a good one. It just depends on who's in need of a safety. Let's see. Let's go down the list.
Well, there are a couple of
If
teams
I
that
had
there are a couple of
there's a
teams
couple
out
of
there.
teams that are one or two pieces. I think Philly would be a good look for him. I think Philly would be a really good look for him to kind of fortify that. And obviously, here's the thing: to get back into the good graces, he's gonna have to get to a winning team and start winning, because that's gonna be the only thing that could kind of smooth this over, if that makes sense. So, I mean, you really gotta just, if I'm his agent, right, and I'm his handler, I'm like, yo, man, we gotta clean this up. Your early 30s, early to mid 30s. So I mean, we may be on last, if not last contract, second to last contract here in the NFL. So if you want to go out with a bang and leave a bit of a legacy, you're gonna have to go out with some wins. The only way you go out with some wins, you got to go out with, you got to go to a winning program. Which, I mean, he's already at a winning program, but I mean, as a Pro Bowl free safety, I think this is a gutsy call by Baltimore, stating that, like, we are not gonna just allow anybody, no matter what your success rate has been, you're not gonna come here and just do what you want to do. We have a firm handle on it, and this is the way we're gonna run our organization. You just don't see that a lot no more in any professional sport, especially the NFL. They like to pull out the old broom and pick up the old rug every now and then. But I mean, they're not doing that with the situation. We don't know. I think if the video might have not gotten leaked, we may have never heard about this. But either way, in order to save his career, he's definitely gonna have to look at some of the second chance programs. New England has always been a great second chance program for the traditionally in trouble. Uh, um, uh, Maybe he go out west and get a whole new start at San Diego, or maybe the Rams. I don't know. I don't know. But wherever he goes, I would definitely go to, even if it meant less money, I'd go to a team where when I got there, we'd have a legit shot at winning, and that would kind of overshadow the demons that have been haunting me for the last couple days, a couple weeks, or whatever.
Well, the next step is, and many reports have several other teams going. I think the team that makes the most sense to Earl is where he played collegiately at the University of Texas. I'm saying the Dallas Cowboys. The team smart money's on Dallas, and that's what I would do. I mean, if I was him, I would go back to the great state of Texas and play for the Dallas Cowboys, who do have a spot for Earl Thomas in the back end of their defense. The team also picked up guys like Clinton. Clinton Dix, and then they added Everson Griffin. So this team is serious about adding veteran leadership to the defense, led by Mike Nolan, former linebackers coach for the Saints. So Dallas is serious, man, about making some moves here, and Earl Thomas could be
That'd
the
be a
guy.
good look for him.
That'd be a good look. And of course, there's ramblings concerning Logan Ryan in Baltimore. And of course, some more information is we've heard that Lamar Jackson is dealing with an injury, so that's he tweaked something in camp. So hopefully it ain't too bad for him, because he represents everything to the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, absolutely. They got everything in that basket, in the Lamar basket. You think any chance Richard puts in a good word with him in San Francisco, and he goes back and reunites with him, or what?
That's an option, but I really I think Earl's getting
That'd be a
close to
good
the
look,
end.
though.
It wouldn't be a bad look, but Earl's getting close to the end of his career. We know that. And he took the money to go to Baltimore when he was unceremoniously marched out of Seattle. So I feel that this is a move where that he feels comfortable going to Dallas. Dallas has always wanted him. They tried to trade for him before. They wanted to know what Baltimore was asking for him when they still had him, but Baltimore ultimately knew, Dallas knew that they were going to end up putting him in the street. So Dallas just waited him out, and I think that probably will be the best bet for him to head to Dallas and play there with the Cowboys. So I mean, that's my call on it. I'm not mad at the San Francisco thing either with Sherman, but I just think at the end of the day, Dallas is probably the team where his heart resides. So let's move on to the next topic. We're going to talk boxing now on TSC Unleashed. I'd like to thank all the family members for joining us in this episode of TSC Unleashed. Thanks for y'all questions and y'all support on this one. We're going to head into the next topic. And I know we got a lot of boxing fans in the chat. We're going to go to a few things that happened this past weekend. And we talk about heavyweights. I like talking about boxing. That's my background. But did you hear about Dillian White getting knocked out by Alexander Povetkin? I mean, that was a title eliminator, pretty much. They having what basically is a tournament, and Dillian White, who complained about not having an opportunity to fight for the belts with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder having a 3-fight to trilogy. He was complaining, so what they did is they set up a tournament between with him and Povetkin on one on the same side with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, and then on the opposite side you got AJ Anthony Joshua going up against who he's fighting on the opposite end, and then of course there is Alexander Usyk going against Derek Chisora. So there, it's kind of like a playoff there. And had Dillian White won this fight, and of course there's a rematch clause in there where he'll fight Povetkin again. He knocked Povetkin down twice in this matchup, and Povetkin caught him with a mean uppercut he never seen coming, dropped him. He was dead as a hammer. They had to revive him with the smelling sauce and everything. So they'll try to fire that one up. Good to see that. Also good to see Joe Smith Jr. and a TKO over Eleider Alvarez, and punched him through the ropes on that one. That was a really good fight. And of course, Showtime Sean Porter was able to get a ring. He went the distance with Famella in LA, and that fight was not really a really interesting fight. I thought Porter couldn't knock the kid out. He was tough, but it is what it is. Any thought process on any of the boxing that occurred this past weekend?
I think he was just trying to cement that number one contender. Well, hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Yeah, I think the Porter fight was an undercard fight. I think he was just more or less trying to cement that guaranteed number one out of the Spencer Garcia winner. So that was that one. I think that the good thing about the Anthony Joshua situation is that Tyson Fury can go fight him right now. On an undisputed level to gain all the belts, and I think that's the first time. And you got to check that out for me. I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's been a while since we've had a no restriction undisputed fight to rope in all the belts. So I mean, it remains to be seen. It's going to be nice. Two Brits fighting each other, or an Irish and a Brit, or whatever it is. That's something else that kind of throws me for a loop. I was heavy in the boxing at one point, but I mean, since the Brits kind of took everything over and the Russians took everything over, that kind of weird to me. But be that as it may, I think the matches that Saturday kind of made it fair, and it kind of evened the playing field for everybody. So now there won't be the win, and they do that for fanfare. Honestly, because I would definitely like to see Wilder and Fury again. But I mean, I understand from the fanfare perspective, somebody's gonna always whine, and that's kind of what happened in this situation. So now I guess it has to be a roundabout way to get back to Fury. But I mean, eventually I think it'll come back to him if Fury can outlast Joshua, and if I don't know, maybe if White doesn't regain the mandatory spot. I really don't know how it's gonna go. But I think that one is gonna go with fight Fury. I think that I think that Joshua's gonna fight Fury, and I think that White probably go square off against what's his face, and I think that they'll come. It'll be maybe 6 months from now, maybe a year from now, who knows? But I think eventually it'll come back to another Fury and Wilder fight. If Wilder could beat White and Fury could hang on and beat Anthony Joshua. What do you think?
Well, the thing is, Fury has to get past Deontay Wilder for the third fight. They've offered the money to bypass so you can go straight for AJ. Unfortunately, Deontay Wilder, he turned it down because, and there was a lot of stuff going on with the fight game tying to Tyson Fury. He's known to cheat a lot, and it was a lot. The first fight was something, it was a glove gate scenario. The second fight was another scenario where his glove didn't look right. The first one, his glove was flopping around on his hands, and I don't know how the refs mix it. You can look at the tape, but he beat Deontay Wilder in the fight. Wilder didn't say anything to the contrary, and he's holding his tongue. So the only thing he could do is come out and do what he needs to do to finish off this fight. Ultimately, in my opinion, I think Tyson Fury is a more talented fighter than Deontay Wilder. Wilder has that great knockout power, but Fury has seemed to neutralize that. Yeah, his skill is really down, and that's the thing. Now, as far as AJ is concerned, AJ has to take care of his business. before he can have an opportunity to face off against Tyson Fury for unification. Then there's Alexander Usyk, who's the former lightweight champion, who's moved up into the fray, who's looking for an opportunity to take on these men. So a lot of stuff is in between before you'll see a Fury and Tyson fight that will ultimately be tying up those belts for the next 2 years. Because once they fight each other, it's going to be a trilogy matchup. It won't be a single fight and everybody else. So they'll tie them up for at least 2 years. And during that duration, you might see Deontay Wilder retire, because I don't see him then holding on for 2 years if he loses the fight. So it's a certain air of desperation where he can crash all of ESPN and their cheatery by just dispatching Tyson Fury the best way he can. It'll be a difficult venture, but not impossible. So I'd like to thank all the great family members for tuning in on this episode of TSC Unleashed. We covered it all, NBA playoffs as well, and a little boxing and football, pro football as well, as we get ready to go. Big ups to the family members for showing you support. Lee Wood say any rumors about Nigel Bradham, official reason given, allow younger linebackers more playing time. I'm going to touch upon it in depth, family. We're going to play some interviews. We're going to have some stuff for you at the 6 o'clock today at 6:05. Please hit the reminder on the notification that you got. Jay Giggity, good to see you in the chat. He says, man, no fan game. Number one, I'm bummed. The home field ain't home field anymore. Not until we get past whatever this is out here, family. And, Jerome, good to see you as well. But the Nigel Bradham thing is most certainly pointing to the fact that they won't get young linebackers more opportunities and more reps. I'll break out, like I said, I'll get more into that in today's show, and then we'll cover the information on TSC Day, Saints Camp Day number 7. That's tonight at 6:05 on our YouTube channel. So I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today on this show. Thank you, Mozzi, as well. We'll see y'all guys tomorrow with another TSC Unleashed. So please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you aren't a subscriber. Please share the links in your social media feed and help TSC Unleashed grow. So from me and Mozzi, thank you for joining us. Peace.